Hello everyone, welcome to Positivity Channel. I'm your host, Sijia Lee. Today we'll take an in-depth look at one of the ancient military classics, Sun Tzu's Art of War. This book is not only a book on the art of war, but also a book of wisdom. In this video, I will present to you 50 key points from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Please subscribe to our channel and learn and grow with us. Let's get started now.
The importance of intelligence and strategy. In World War I, the British successfully used codes to crack German communications and obtained important intelligence, which made a huge contribution to the victory of the war. Integration and coordinated operations. During the United Nations war against Korea, the U.S. military, the South Korean Army, and the armies of other United Nations member states formed an integrated force to jointly resist North Korea's aggression, reflecting the importance of integrity and coordinated operations. Waiting and watching. In the early days of World War II, Britain adopted a wait-and-see strategy. Faced with the early success of the German Blitzkrieg, the British Army avoided direct confrontation with Germany and chose to retreat at Dunkirk, creating opportunities for future counterattacks. Wartime temperance. The Battle of the Rhine is an example of World War I. The French army adopted wartime restraint on the defense line and used firepower accurately to successfully resist the German attack and maintain the stability of the front. Diversifying the force. The role of special forces in World War II is an example of this. For example, the British Special Airborne Service, SAS, and the American Rangers have diverse skills, including airborne, reconnaissance, and special operations. Defensive strategy. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union adopted a defensive strategy of mutual checks and balances, using nuclear deterrence to prevent the other party from taking offensive actions and avoid direct military conflict. Bearing the humiliation. During the Korean War, the United Nations forces lost their previous offensive momentum due to North Korea's intervention. Since then, the United Nations forces have adopted a strategy of enduring humiliation, maintaining a solid defense and maintaining their position. United as one. During World War II, especially during the Battle of Britain, Britain demonstrated its united national will by mobilizing the nation's unity and resolutely resisting German air raids. Know yourself and the enemy, and you will never be in danger in 100 battles. The famous war strategist Alexander the Great always focused on understanding the enemy's situation during battles. Through reconnaissance and intelligence, he could better understand the enemy's weaknesses and gain an advantage. Thousands of miles away, we can win a decisive victory. During the American Civil War, President Lincoln and General Grant, the generals of the Northern Union Army, successfully defeated the Confederate Army by formulating strategic plans and strategizing. Don't underestimate the enemy. Don't be greedy for credit. In World War II, Hitler underestimated the enemy of the Soviet Union and ignored the impact of Russia's severe cold, which ultimately led to the defeat of the German army in the Battle of Moscow. Victory by surprise, endless changes. General Washington used unexpected tactics in the American Revolutionary War, such as a night attack on the Delaware River, which successfully turned the tide of the war. The art of war is impermanent. In the First World War, faced with new weapons and tactics, countries continued to adjust their military strategies, reflecting the flexibility of the art of war is impermanent. Military integrity and coordinated operations. During the United Nations fight against the Korean War, the U.S. military, the Korean Army, and other United Nations forces demonstrated their ability to coordinate operations and formed a powerful overall force. Victory with less. In the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong used guerrilla tactics and used small units to fight against the powerful military power of the U.S. military, successfully demonstrating the principle of victory with less. Principles of Army organization and management. The organization and management system of the Roman legion fully reflected the principle of art of war in ancient times. Through flexible organization and strict discipline, a powerful combat team was constructed. Quick victory and reduced resource consumption. In the Gallic War, Napoleon Bonaparte reduced the French army's resource consumption through rapid marches and fast battles, and finally defeated the coalition army. Discusses the principles of organization and management of armies. In world history, Napoleon Bonaparte is a prominent example. Napoleon adopted a series of advanced organizational and management principles when commanding the French army, including establishing a clear command structure, implementing a fast and flexible military organization, and emphasizing quick decision-making and flexible mobility. Emphasize quick victory and reduce resource consumption. In World War II, Germany's Blitzkrieg strategy was an example. By using fierce and rapid attacks, the German army tried to quickly defeat its opponents in a short period of time in order to reduce the consumption of its own resources. This strategy achieved some stunning successes in the initial stages of the war, but it also came at a cost due to changes in strategic objectives. Proposed, the way to victory lies in infinity. The experience of George McClellan, the federal general in the American Civil War, is an example. His hesitance to attack and pursue enemy forces led to a series of defeats, demonstrating the importance of decisiveness and decisive action in military warfare, consistent with Sun Tzu's Art of War's "The way to victory lies in infinity." Highlighting the military's flexibility. During the Cold War, the United States Rapid Reaction Forces were an example established to respond to possible global conflicts. This force emphasizes high mobility and the ability to deploy quickly to respond to various emergencies, demonstrating the concept of flexible mobility in Sun Tzu's Art of War. Emphasis on the impact on the enemy's psychology. In World War II, the Allied pretend plan against Germany was a typical example. By creating false information and deliberately misleading the enemy, the Allies successfully influenced the German army's judgment on real operations, such as the Normandy landings, demonstrating the influence of Sun Tzu's Art of War on the enemy's psychology. Discusses the time factor of using troops. In Napoleon's Russian campaign, Napoleon misjudged the time of Russia's counterattack. His army failed to retreat in time during the winter and was attacked by the severe cold and the Russian army, resulting in a disastrous defeat for the French army. This shows the importance of correctly estimating the time factor in military deployment. He advocated not sticking to the provisions of the art of war, but using it flexibly. In the Battle of Chibi, Cao Cao adopted a water warfare strategy when facing the coalition forces of Sun and Liu. However, Zhou Yu and Zhuge Liang successfully broke Cao Cao's tactics by using flexible tactics of fire attack, demonstrating their flexibility and adaptability. It is proposed that the essence of the art of war is governance and organization. Alexander the Great expanded the Macedonian Empire to Asia, Africa, and Europe through his governance and organizational talents. He was not only an outstanding military commander, but also an outstanding national ruler, demonstrating the close connection between the essence of war and governance organization. Discusses the selection and training of soldiers. Ancient Rome established a professional army system and focused on the selection and training of soldiers to make the army more elite. This system provided a solid foundation for the conquest and expansion of ancient Rome and reflected the emphasis on the selection and training of soldiers in the art of war. Emphasizing the strategy of being on the defensive and waiting for the enemy. In World War I and World War II, Britain adopted the strategy of being on the defensive and waiting for the enemy, sticking to key points and destroying the enemy's troops so that they could not break through the British defense lines for a long time, ultimately gained strategic advantage. Advocating the training and quality improvement of soldiers. Sparta in ancient Greece cultivated excellent soldiers through a strict training system. Their soldier training focuses on the comprehensive improvement of physical fitness, discipline, and tactical skills, ensuring the high quality of the army and reflecting the emphasis on soldier training and quality in the art of war. Discussed the integrity and coordinated operations of the military. In the Korean War, the United Nations Army formed an integrated combat effectiveness through the coordinated operations of the armies of different countries. The effective coordination between the militaries of various countries to fight against the North Korean invasion demonstrates the importance of military integrity and coordinated operations. Emphasis on prudent decision-making and no talk of war. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, U.S. President Kennedy made prudent decisions and did not talk of war lightly. Resolving the crisis through diplomatic means avoided the outbreak of nuclear war, embodying the principle of prudent decision-making in the art of war. The importance of knowing yourself and the enemy. Considering the Pacific battlefield during World War II, the U.S. military gained a deep understanding of Japan's combat plans by stealing Japanese communication codes, such as decoding Japan's Purple Code. This intelligence superiority enabled the United States to deliver a fatal blow to Japan at the Battle of Midway. The concept of impermanence in the art of war. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union adopted different military strategies. The Soviet Union advocated numerical superiority, while the United States placed more emphasis on technological innovation and flexibility. This flexibility allowed the United States to quickly adapt to the new international security situation after the end of the Cold War. Advocating for the training and quality improvement of soldiers, Nazi Germany's Blitzkrieg strategy achieved astonishing success in the early days of World War II. The German soldiers were well-trained, highly mobile, and quickly invaded many European countries, demonstrating a high degree of combat quality. Emphasizing the strategy of being on the defensive and waiting for the enemy. During the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong adopted guerrilla tactics and was good at ambushing in jungles with complex terrain. The U.S. military tried to fight the Vietnamese army with traditional battle methods, but ultimately found that it was more effective to take a defensive position and rely on positional advantages. The time factor of the use of troops is discussed. During the Gulf War, the coalition forces quickly organized a counterattack against Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. The coalition seized favorable weather conditions and timing, and through swift ground and air strikes, successfully overturned the Iraqi occupation of Kuwait. Bringing up the importance of military intelligence. Throughout world history, intelligence has played a key role in military decision-making. During World War II, for example, the United Kingdom successfully cracked the German Enigma code. This operation was called Ultra and provided valuable intelligence to the Allies and affected the direction of the war. Advocating flexibility in the use of troops. In the American Revolutionary War, American General George Washington adopted a guerrilla warfare strategy. Through flexible maneuvers and avoiding the real situation, he fought against the British regular army and finally won the war. Discusses the practical operation of the art of war. During the Cold War, when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, U.S. President John F. Kennedy negotiated with Soviet leaders through actual combat operations and successfully resolved a nuclear war that was on the verge of breaking out. Emphasizing the importance of unity and morale. In British history, for example, during the Castle in the Twist moment during World War II, London residents maintained high morale despite the continuous German air raids, united as one, and faced the enemy's threat together. Advocates continuous learning and adapting to changes. In military history, Napoleon Bonaparte was a commander who was good at learning and adapting. He adopted flexible tactics on the battlefield and successfully changed the situation, but ultimately failed due to his failure to adapt to the external environment. Discusses the wartime and peacetime management of the Army. In American history, George Washington demonstrated outstanding military management capabilities during the Revolutionary War, including establishing and training the Army, maintaining military discipline, and managing the Army in peacetime. Emphasis on not being despised by the enemy and maintaining majesty. In World War I, French General Charles de Gaulle successfully used the Céline tactics to continuously create illusions, causing the German army to misjudge the strength of the French army, thus maintaining the majesty of the French army. Advocates making full use of terrain and weather. In the American Revolutionary War, American General Benedict Arnold made full use of the terrain in the Battle of Saratoga. Through clever formations, he defeated the British Army under unfavorable circumstances and changed the war situation. Discussed the importance of rest and recovery. In World War II, the Soviet Red Army maintained its combat effectiveness through reasonable rest and recovery during the Battle of Stalingrad and ultimately successfully resisted the German attack. Emphasis on observation of enemy movements. During the Cold War, the United States maintained military balance and avoided potential conflicts by continuously observing the Soviet military actions and movements, obtaining intelligence in a timely manner. It is suggested that if the troops are sufficient, use them, and if they are insufficient, avoid them. In the Vietnam War, the United States failed to successfully occupy northern Vietnam despite insufficient troops, and was eventually forced to withdraw. This shows the smart decision to avoid direct confrontation when there are insufficient troops. It is suggested that if there are sufficient troops, use them, and if there are insufficient, avoid them. During World War II, the Soviet Union implemented the Big Satellite Project in the early stages of the anti-German war. Through rapid mobilization of troops and flexible use of troops, it resisted the German invasion. During Operation Barbarossa in 1941, the Soviet Union realized that it was short of troops and took a strategic retreat to avoid direct confrontation, ultimately retaining its strength and laying the foundation for subsequent counterattacks. Discusses the strategy and tactics of the art of war. In the American Civil War Marshal Robert E. Lee demonstrated excellent strategic and tactical thinking. He adopted a flexible battle plan at the strategic level, and at the tactical level, he successfully dealt with the offensive of the Northern Federal Army through means such as barrage tactics and ambush, demonstrating the principle of flexibility in military tactics emphasized in Sun Tzu's Art of War. Emphasis on the ability and eliteness of the military. Alexander the Great's Macedonian army is a typical example. Alexander was committed to cultivating a highly elite, well-trained, and combat-effective army. He adopted in-depth training and optimization of organizational structure, allowing the Macedonian army to achieve many victories in Asian campaigns, demonstrating the principles of better troops and simpler administration, and not to be despised by the enemy. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to Positivity Channel. See you next time.